Hello, welcome to Armchair Sports Talk Football. Today we're talking about the NFC West. Topic will cover the NFC West, which consists of the Rams, Seahawks, Niners, and Cardinals. And actually, I guess I kind of went backwards there because we're going to start from the bottom and work our way to the top. So let's get to it. We start at the bottom. That means the Arizona Cardinals are down there. We have Kyler Murray to be excited about, but he's not our player to watch. We're already going to be watching him. So let's look at who he's going to be throwing the ball to. He's going to be throwing it to Larry Fitzgerald. I think they recently had to sign Michael Crabtree due to some injuries to one of their fourth-round wide receivers. But that aside, Christian Kirk is going to be returning. I think he has a lot of upside. There's a coaching staff change, and he still finds himself as the de facto number one. So Arizona definitely wants to utilize the passing game, and someone has to catch these passes from Kyler Murray. So I think Christian Kirk should be our guy to keep an eye on, and if he falls to you in his respective round, I want to say he's going somewhere around round 6. I'll have to double check on that, but I do think he's worth a little extra attention, and maybe you move up in your drafts to get him, or just enjoy watching the football season knowing that, hey, I was right. Christian Kirk is a pretty good wide receiver. The Cardinals' projected win total's 5. It's actually a pretty good number. Man, I'm thinking about Patrick Peterson, the cornerback, and I think he's out for the first couple of games. He's kind of their leader. Just he's such a shutdown cornerback. He makes other teams have to adjust, and when you do that, they're not playing to their strengths anymore. So they do have a potential of getting more than 5 wins. I'll go cautiously over. I think they could get six wins here. And I know it's hard to say like, oh, one more win and they're going to be there, but it's a hard prediction. They got a good job coming up with a number. That's why they get paid the big bucks to come up with the numbers to entice people to bet money. So we'll go with the Cardinals just slightly over the 5-game win total. Keep an eye on Christian Kirk. The next team, second from the bottom, it could be flip-flopped here, but let's go with the San Francisco 49ers. There's still a lot unproven. Their head coach, who was a former offensive coordinator for my Falcons, Kyle Shanahan, he's still trying to prove himself out in San Francisco under John Lynch, who's also himself probably under the hot seat because they brought in Jimmy Garropolo. He's had some injury history, and then now news out of camp is he's struggling with the offense, throwing interceptions, holding onto the ball too long, and then not to mention they signed Jerick McKinnon. He went down with this injury since the beginning of the season, and now he's back this year, but he's already having setbacks. So unfortunately, it looks like they're have a couple hurdles, and we haven't even started week 1 yet. So I have them going under. I think this is a 7-9 team, maybe even 6-10. But San Francisco has some of the tools. They were more competitive in games than I thought without Jimmy Garoppolo, without Pierre Garçon, either through injury or just lack of performance. And they spent some money on him in free agency. So San Francisco is a pretty resilient city when it comes to their football team. So not too much under the 8 wins, but I think 8's a little high. And my player to watch is by default Tevin Coleman. I think if he gets a hold on the job to start, he'll do enough to keep it throughout the season. He also has that familiarity with Kyle Shanahan because they both were in Atlanta at the same time. So I think Tevin Coleman should be able to put up some decent numbers, especially if they're able to stay competitive, because they'll have no need to turn to some of their younger guys. But they do have a lot of talent in that backfield that got them through last season. So hopefully Tevin Coleman's given that first opportunity because I think he'll hang on to it. We'll move up to the Seahawks. They are a gritty franchise. I think that is encapsulated, I don't know, maybe that's the word, by their head coach, Pete Carroll, who used to be at USC, been with the Seahawks for a while, been with them when Russell was a rookie. They were a defensive team. They paid him. They've made adjustments. The wide receiver talent hasn't been what they expected it, either through Doug Baldwin and an injury or just not as much talent as they initially thought on draft day and free agency. So they turned him into a running team, and they keep their defensive team fresh. They come up with clever schemes, and Russell Wilson is pretty durable. He does a good job out there. And with a run-first team that's projected for 8.5 wins, and I suspect they'll go over it just slightly, I like the running back. Run-heavy teams are few and far between. I do expect them to share the workload a little bit, but I think Chris Carson's going to get probably 60 to 65% of the work, and they're not talking about using a CJ Procise or some other running back to spell him for passing downs. So with that not really on the table anymore, I think Chris Carson could get himself 2 to 3 catches a game to go with at least 16, 17 carries on the low side. And if it's a game that they have in hand and they're just running the clock out, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up with right around 10 to 12 touchdowns to go with, I don't know, 1,200 to 1,500 yards rushing. So I really do like Chris Carson a lot. I think the Seahawks backfield had me confused for a while when they were trying to figure out how they were going to divvy up their workload. But it looks like Chris Carson is going to be the man in charge until further notice. So let's go ahead and make sure he's on as many of our fantasy teams as we can logically add him to. The top dog in the NFC West is going to be the Super Bowl participant, LA Rams, and I say participant loosely because I got a field goal in there. It was a very boring Super Bowl game. And my player to watch is going to be Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff has too many weapons to ignore. Todd Gurley is healthy, so he'll be back out there in the backfield. Hopefully they don't let C.J. Anderson or remove him off their speed dial. And I know they got Henderson and they got just a handful of other running backs, but come on, let me make my references. Jared Goff has too many weapons. He can throw it to Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp is back. I think Gerald Everett's going to be a good receiving tight end. They still have Tyler Higbee, who was okay from time to time. They run 3 wide receiver sets. They can go heavy goal line formation with 2 tight ends. So whatever formation they're in, Jared Goff's out there. So the play action is going to work immensely, especially if teams are believing that Todd Gurley's healthy. And then if he proves that he's healthy on top of that, there's going to be nothing that stops these play actions because they're going to have the defense completely off balance. And then speaking of defense, they still bring back Aqib Talib, the really good cornerback. I think as he gets older, he is not going to diminish that much because he's a bigger cornerback. He's very physical. He's at least 6'1", and he's not afraid to snatch your chain off your neck. So I don't see any reason why he can't continue at the same level of performance. He has no fear. Aaron Donald's the best defensive lineman. I don't know. It depends on who you ask. And in quite some time, let's just put it that way. So when you have a veteran presence and just a really good almost shutdown corner, even at the age of Aqib Talib, and you have one of the youngest still up-and-coming, possibly best linemen in the game right now in Aaron Donald, I think that you have very little to worry about. So 10.5 wins for this team seems rather low. I can see them getting 12 to 13 wins rather comfortably in this division. So Jared Goff is going under the radar in a lot of fantasy leagues, and then also for daily fantasy. I don't think he's a very attractive pick or sexy pick. But let's not forget that game against the Chiefs where they combined for over 100 total points. So they're not afraid to put some points on the board, and I really like that Jared Goff on the Rams, Chris Carson on the Seahawks. I'm going to be forced to choose someone on the Niners, and I went with Tevin Coleman, and I like Christian Kirk on the Cardinals. So thank you for watching Armchair Sports Talk. I'm Sterling, and I'll look forward to talking to you next time.